Got you. Thank you, man.
So, Alex, Pat Riley last week in his presser promised changes are coming to the Miami Heat. He talked about availability as the big theme, as we've all talked about the past week. But he also suggested that he's not going to tear down the team. That's not in the cards. So, as much as we want Donovan, he hasn't technically requested a trade, and it's really hard to get all stars and superstars. So, the sentiment on Heat Twitter and just in general is that we're gonna run it back. So, my question to you is: do you predict that we're gonna run it back with the core, let's say the four of Terry, Tyler, Jimmy, Bam? Of course, we have Jovic and Hawkes. We're gonna have to replace probably Caleb and Haywood with minimum guys. Do you think that's going to most likely happen? Or do you think there is a likelihood we could trade because we have to trade? We have no cap space. That's our only opportunity. You can't really sign any free agents like Paul George or DeMar or anybody like that. Or do you think we're going to try and test out trading Tyler Hero once again or Terry Rozier, getting rotational players like guys with size, perhaps I hate Kuzma, but perhaps a Kuzma or perhaps guys that we missed out on like this last season, PJ Washington, Gafford, and players like that? What direction do you predict will go?
Honestly, I don't want to cop out, but I don't really have a prediction. I think like I wouldn't be surprised if the first option came true, where it's like, maybe they bring back one of Haywood or Caleb. Maybe they bring back neither and got to replace them with veteran minimums, which is not a fun scenario to talk about, right? Like what Torrey Craig and like I don't know, like somebody like that, having to replace those guys, and those guys are kind of your guard defenders. Outside of DeLon, who is also a free agent, I think there's more optimism about bringing him back because he might just take the veteran minimum plus the raise, which is what they did with K-Love last summer. So like there doesn't seem to be much worry about that. But Caleb and Haywood were your fours and were your guard defenders. And it's like, yeah, you didn't want them to be your full-time fours, but those were nice, like really nice additions for them over the years because of their defense, and has helped them, form that defensive identity outside of Jimmy and Bam. And just having other guys who can do that, it's going to hurt to see one or two of them go. And I think that's probably likely at this point, just given the current state of the roster, unless they do some, interesting maneuvering. My guy, Brian Goins from Heatbeat today pointed out that maybe Thomas Bryant and Jay Rach decline their options, but accept the veteran minimum. And that helps the Heat get a little bit further away from the second apron. I don't know. I don't know exactly how they could do it. But it does seem like Caleb is probably going to be gone if another team offers double digits per year. I don't know how much a team is going to be willing to offer him. I think he had a really up and down year. And outside of that, when you mentioned Pat referencing changes, right? And that's the first thing he came out with, right? He always does like a monologue at the beginning of his press conferences. And that was, changes were kind of mentioned. But then, that was interesting in the moment. But then, you keep hearing, and as you mentioned there, that it was really more about the availability. I think he was referencing, the way that they do things, and he was trying to be kind of like broad about it or vague, I guess, because he's not blaming it on one way of doing things. He's saying like whatever you guys are doing when it comes to Jimmy and Tyler, who are really the subjects of his availability talk, whatever you're doing is not working, right? Tyler missed a ton of games this year, has missed games in the past, and a lot of it has been like freak injury stuff, but it's just kept happening. Jimmy obviously had, probably his worst regular season in a Heat uniform this year. Was still good, right? But had a down year, I think, in his effectiveness, missed games. Some of it due to injury, and some of it due to, personal reasons that were very real. And I think it was just a tough season, right? And it's 2 straight. And I think he is not in a position to be your 1A guy during the regular season. He's made that clear. Right, like he's not going to do that. He can be out there, but he's not going to give you his full effort. And as much as he wants to deny the playoffs and stuff, like come on.
Why do they allow him to do that when they didn't let Braun and D Wade and all these other guys like
they've softened up?
No, huh?
They've softened up. Like according to Ethan, Ethan is the one who's been around these guys forever, and it's a lot of the same people in the organization. They've softened up on the stars. Like it's not the same era that it used to be, right? Where like and Jimmy Butler is somebody who has, power played his way out of multiple places. Like he can, I don't think they have a good relationship because they're aligned on the same things. They care about the same things, but like they're not micromanaging Jimmy in any way, and he barely even like speaks to the media. Like Bam is that guy who is kind of like the face of the organization when it comes to having to do all the day-to-day stuff. I mean, Jimmy's just as much of a part of it. I'm just saying, like, I think some of it is just like this is the reality with older stars now. Is you've seen it with LeBron, you've seen it with kind of the Clippers stars. Like, there's going to be a certain way that you manage the season. I think it's all part of like a bigger subject when it comes to the de-emphasis of the regular season in the NBA. And that's kind of being the result of them not wanting to shorten the season in the first place. It's like, well, we're not going to shorten the season. We're not going to bust our ass 82 games plus preseason plus playoff games. You know what I mean? Like, it's everybody knows it's about the playoffs, about winning in the playoffs. So I think seeding is less important. Seeding and winning every game in the regular season is less important to these stars, especially the older ones who have a lot of playoff miles on them. And that's just kind of the way that you go about it now.